Hey everyone, happy Wednesday. Glad to have you with us here on Ultimate Rival Sports Talk. He's Breaky CPK. I'm Haley Outen. Great to have you here. Middle of the week, Breaky. How you doing?
Doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. It's a good week here. Weather's been actually starting to get a bit better. As I say that, I've heard it might actually snow overnight. I live in Michigan, so who the hell knows? It's up and down all the time. You never really know. But overall, it's been getting better weather-wise, which is always nice. So I've been able to enjoy outside more and been able to enjoy, a good amount of sports. We're at that point where there's just like good regular season sports going on. Nothing too dramatic right now.
Yeah, I hear you. 72 degrees this past Saturday in Boston. And then, of course, like the weather then decides it's like a teaser because it's then going to break people's hearts. Some parts of New England this weekend expected to possibly get some snow as well. So it's at that time of year where we want it to be summer or just even spring so bad. We get these glimpses of sunshine, but it's not over yet.
Yeah.
So.
It's
But we can
almost
at least tell
May.
ourselves on these nice days that I know it's on my way. Exactly. Well, we got some good stuff to talk about today. First things first, though, before we get into the conversations, we're going to talk about some NFL draft. We're going to recap the Masters, but let's throw our poll out into the chat early today so we can give people plenty of time to vote. And the question that Breaky and I have for you this week is, who do you think is the second best quarterback in this year's NFL draft? We're going to assume that you think Trevor Lawrence is the top pick, but who would you pick if you had that second chance at grabbing a quarterback this year?
Yeah, and I think that is debatable, frankly. That is Trevor Lawrence really the overall best quarterback in this draft? A lot of the consensus seems to be that, yes, he's a generational quarterback, and Jacksonville certainly thinks that, and it's fine, but I personally think he's maybe a tad overrated. But with that said, he is the number one. And so we figured this would be a fun question as you got at, where there's a lot of these other quarterbacks. There's potentially expected to be 4 or 5 quarterbacks even along with Trevor Lawrence that could go in the first round, let alone the top 15 picks, which is we do not have that often in these NFL drafts. So it could be quite the QB class. So yeah, curious on what the people think with our poll here.
Yeah, well, let us know how you feel in the poll. We'll circle back a little bit later in the stream. And as always, we encourage you to check out all of our platforms. Those of you here with us on Twitch and YouTube, that's awesome. But you can also join the conversation on Discord, as well as heading to ultimaterivals.com to get the latest on not only the rink, but our upcoming title, The Court. And if you're a fan of Steam, you can also add yourself to our wish list there so that you'll be the first to know when Ultimate Rivals heads to Steam. So some things to put on your to-do list for this week. But let's dive right in, Breaky, talking about the Masters first today. And there's something super special about Masters weekend. And, well, it's been an odd year. We've talked about that plenty, but we've kind of gotten to see the Masters twice within, like a 5-month span. This one feeling a little bit more normal. But Hideki Matsuyama of Japan, he won the 85th Masters on Sunday, becoming the tournament's first Asian-born champion and the first Japanese man to ever win a major golf championship. And one of my favorite things throughout the broadcast, especially on Sunday, was when they kept playing the broadcast from Japan.
Yeah.
And no idea what they're saying, but you could tell that either they were totally excited or a total train wreck, thinking that he might end up losing this thing towards the end on the back nine. But really neat accomplishment. And he's going to be literally like the man now that he's back in Japan.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It's so first off, I want to say I am not somebody that's really watched a lot of, frankly, any golf in my lifetime. For whatever reason, these Masters this weekend, it was a chill weekend. Like I said, it was good weather outside, but it was also like it's just a nice chill weekend. And the Masters happened to be on. I'm sitting there like, you know what? I'll tune in. I'll tune in a little bit. And I found myself both Saturday and especially Sunday, somewhat into it. I finally realized my 34-year-old self. I was like, you know what? I can see why maybe some people find this enjoyable. It's a nice sport to kind of just have on in the background. Obviously, it goes throughout the whole day, in each of the days, and again, like I said, especially on Sunday, and it can be entertaining. And this one, it was a mix of. it was looking like it was going to be a pull away for Matsuyama. Like he was up by 5 or 6 shots on Sunday at a point, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden, a couple of bogeys here and there later on. There was one hole, whereas like on the 15th or 16th or something where he actually went into the water, and suddenly it's like only a 2-shot lead, and we're going, okay, we're actually might have a dramatic finish. But ultimately he pulled ahead, and he only won by 1 shot in the end, but it really wasn't as close as that suggested, frankly. So, obviously for the country of Japan, let alone the whole region of Asia, being able to have massive success like this in the Masters, Japan itself is a huge golfing nation, from what I've been hearing, and so he really elevated himself to just superstar status. Again, from what I'm hearing, with this victory. And yeah, I listen as well to the Japanese broadcast when they cut it every once in a while, and you can't help but just smile at that and be entertained, because obviously they were very biased, understandably, but as they should have been, rooting for the boy there. So
Yeah, well, he shot a 65 in the third round on Saturday. And as you mentioned, coming into Sunday with a 4-stroke lead. So had a little bit of cushion, and not his best round of golf on Sunday, but certainly enough to get the job done and put on the green jacket at the end of the day. But Saturday was really an incredible performance. He had an eagle and 4 birdies in his final 8 holes. And then down the stretch on Sunday, bogeys at 3 of the final 4 holes, including 18. It's like at the end, I'm like, when you come into 18, you have people around, you're about to win the Masters. It's like, don't you just want to sink an incredible putt to end the thing? And so it was a little bit of a bummer in that sense, but just fighting, I'm sure, so much pressure, especially in that back 9 when Xander Schauffele was coming for him. And that water played an incredible role in those last 4 holes. First, with Matsuyama, and then all of a sudden, Xander's like, I'm in a position to maybe win this thing, or to at least tie it and maybe play some extra golf. But then the water ends up getting him too, and that was a disaster.
So I gotta say this up front too, that I did, as I've been saying recently, thanks to Michigan finally passing the law with being able to sports gambling, I did actually put a little bit of money on this. So, that kind of helped entice me a little bit to be more interested. And I did have Xander winning it going into Sunday. I like the odds with him, pulling back and actually taking over Matsuyama and winning it in the end. So I was rooting for Xander there, and yeah, when he got close all of a sudden early on, I'm like, oh, this isn't gonna happen. Then the bogey started kicking in for Matsuyama, and Xander was hitting some birdies, made it within 2 shots. I think it's like, we have a shot, and then it was like on hole 15, I think he got a triple bogey, and it was just like,
yeah,
yikes.
The only one, by the way. He's never had a triple bogey
yeah
in the Masters in his whole career. And then right at the end, when he's finally within striking distance, tough timing, like into the water, then like overhits it into the crowd, and it's like just.
I gotta say though,
tragedy.
Again, as an amateur watcher of golf, I do have a lot more respect now. Not that I didn't, but even more respect now for these golf, because the course at Augusta here, I know it's known as one of the top courses in the world, and obviously one of the top events in the world all year round. It's pretty ridiculous, the holes that they set up. Like, I didn't realize how extremely difficult to make it, from the sand traps around to the water traps that are on a majority of these holes in this case, to even when you get to the green, there's elevation all over the place. It almost feels like you go like 10 feet past the hole and it's going to be dipping down into some water bank. I mean, it's actually pretty crazy, and it's certainly got to have some I at least have some newfound respect for what these golfers are able to do.
Yeah, it's definitely a unique event. And I mean, they even dealt with some elements throughout the weekend with a little bit of weather. There was a rain delay on Saturday. So yeah, always changing and a challenging course, but it's fun to see. Like, I was kind of bummed on Sunday because I love when it's so close and there's a bunch of players in contention at the end, and it's like, he's kind of running away with it. And great moment for him, but no matter who wins, I just always want it to be close. And but it ended up being more exciting than I thought it was going to be towards the end. But something interesting to note, I think, is you talk about money and betting, just sort of maybe adding a little motivation for you as a fan. Speaking of money, when it comes to the Masters, Matsuyama won over $2 million
Yeah.
being the Masters champion. And we haven't mentioned Will Zalatoris yet, but he was a fun player to watch throughout the tournament. It was his first ever appearance playing in the Masters. And, Frankie, he walked away with like 1.2 million, finishing in second place. So pretty not a bad week.
I have a slightly funny story on that, because so to your point, yeah, it is pretty ridiculous that golf players, they can make some bank. If you're a top tier golfer, and obviously Tiger Woods, you kind of realize now how he's able to be so successful, or why he was able to be so successful. On top of, oh, by the way, all these endorsement deals that they get. If you're a top tier golfer, obviously you see all these golfers wearing some sort of advertisement, depending on who's paying them the money. So yeah, these top tier golfers are all very wealthy millionaires. But on Will Zalatoris, so again, stick with the gambling thing. So again, I'm looking through the odds, and I'm like, and I was remembering from what I saw on Saturday, and I'm like, I like this guy. I think he's going to be able. I like the odds that he has, and I can make a decent return here. I actually think he has a good shot. In my head, I'm thinking the Xander guy is Will Zalatoris. I was like, oh yeah, he's the young 24-year-old that I liked on Saturday, and so I put the money down, and then on Sunday I'm like rooting for who I found out was Will Zalatoris, but I thought was Xander through like the first like 6 or 7 holes, and then I finally noticed on screen the name came up, and I was like, wait a second, that's not how I put money. I don't even know what I'm doing. So I ended up putting money on Xander, and who's not Will Zalatoris, believe it or not. But that goes to show you that maybe I shouldn't be doing this. But either way, got me interested.
It's funny that you happen to confuse Will Zalatoris with Xander Schauffele, because Will was also confused throughout the weekend for Happy Gilmore's caddy. Lots of pictures surfacing about the how much they look alike, and he even actually fun moment. I mean, he's 24 years old. He went to Wake Forest, Masters debut, and Adam Sandler, Happy Gilmore himself, tweeted out, "Mr. Gilmore is watching you and very proud." So kind of fun to see Adam Sandler, playing into all of the images that were circulating around that. It was pretty cool.
There you go, showing on. That is pretty good. I saw that earlier as well. That's pretty clever right there.
It's like too close.
It is. What a masterpiece of a movie that was. Yeah, no, I am actually glad that I watched the Masters, because like it was more entertaining than I was going to give it credit for, than I always have given credit for. It actually does make me, obviously I know who Tiger Woods is. I absolutely recognize the success that he was able to have, but frankly, I didn't really watch any of his golf. I just always heard stories about him and who he was and how great he was. So it does make me regret a little bit now that I wasn't more interested in appreciating watching live what he was able to do. But who knows? We're cycling more and more players into the golf scene, and maybe there'll be another one that I can now appreciate a little bit more if I get more into it.
Breaky, new assignment for you. Since you just threw up that shot of Will Zalatoris and Happy Gilmore's caddy, Google the menu at Augusta National for the Masters, basically like food at the Masters prices. This is worth putting up.
Food menu.
So at the Masters, we just talked about how much money is on the table for those participating, which is nice. But for those who actually get the chance to go and are selected, it is by far, I don't know if you would expect this from, if you're just not super familiar with it. You're used to paying, $15, $20 for a beer at an NFL game or wherever, these crazy absurd prices. And then you get to the Masters, and it couldn't be less expensive.
That's crazy.
Like, this is where you want to bring your family.
That's what
everyone.
I wonder how much
you can order whatever you want.
I wonder how much it costs to get in, like what the tickets are. Obviously, the ticket prices, I'm sure, aren't cheap to go in the first place.
Well,
but
it's a lottery selection, so
okay. Yeah, that is pretty crazy.
Isn't that incredible?
It's one of those. It's like they're at a point where they realize that obviously again, the golf scene, just like tennis, it's
Yeah.
a very wealthy scene. There's a lot of wealthy people that are invested into it, that participate in it, etc. So yeah, that is still. I mean, they could get away with the higher prices, but it's kind of one of the, I guess, the perks. Interesting.
I mean, they're known for their pimento cheese. $1.50. Gotta try it, right?
Yeah, B
Maybe one a
tactics.
day.
He's expressing his shock as well, because I was on board with. I thought that's what you were getting at, that they were going to be absurd prices, but absurd the other way.
No, that's what I wanted you to think. But I don't think the tickets are anything unreasonable. I think they're around like $100 a day. So not cheap, but
Yeah,
it's not like Super Bowl tickets.
if you're a big time golf fan, then that seems pretty reasonable. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty funny. Last thing I really have on this is back to Matsuyama. I always sort of wonder what these players do, like across any sport, like after you achieve what is arguably like your life's goal in that sport. Like I would assume any golfer, they dream their whole life to put on the green jacket and win the Masters. What do you do after you leave? Like, what do you do next? Especially during a pandemic. But he was spotted at the airport waiting for his flight to board, going to Chicago on Monday. And actually, if you want to Google this one too, it's kind of funny. It's a tweet from Darren Ravel, but he's sitting in the airport alone, 6:45 in the morning, just hanging out, and the green jacket is just draped on the airport seat, sitting next to him, like any other jacket, Like, you think you'd have that thing in like wrapped up or like a bubble of some sort, but it's just draping there, no big deal.
Yeah. It is interesting kind of thinking about that, but I mean, it's like, what is he going to do with it, right? It's a trophy in a sense for him to take home, and in this case it's more of a practical trophy than a lot of other trophies and what they would be. It's not like coming from the esports scene, we have, for some reason, there's this big thing. It's died down a little bit, but there used to especially be this big thing where massive checks that would be given to the teams of the players after they won, and so you're thinking to yourself, like, it's great for a picture, they're holding it up and everything, like, but that's like, what the hell do they do with this massive ass check with it? What are they supposed to actually? They can't like fly home with it. I mean, they put it on the plane, I guess they have to check it in, and that costs more money in itself. So but yeah.
But I mean, like, you're in the airport in Atlanta, actually, waiting to fly to Chicago, and coming from Augusta National. I mean, like, a few people in Georgia might have heard of the Masters, and can you imagine just like walking through the airport and being like, I think that's the green jacket.
Sure. Yeah. No. I mean, that'd be pretty cool to see in person, definitely. But let's be honest.
Accidentally leaving it behind. You got to put that thing in the bag.
If somebody got their hands on that would be pretty. You would see that on eBay or taking it into a pawn shop of sorts, and make some good money for that, I'm sure.
Yep, that is true.
But again, you also just mentioned that. Oh, by the way, he won over $2 million for this. So it's like, is like, I understand. Yes, I'm not gonna sit here and say like, oh, he doesn't care about the jacket, but. he got a lot more from this event than just simply a jacket.
You cannot put a price on the jacket, Breaky.
I actually wonder if you could. Like, how much is the...
Well, you can put a price on anything, but not the jacket.
Let's see what it comes up with.
I can't imagine there have been any for sale. Who's selling that?
I don't know about that. Yeah, it's like, I don't know. Because you got like Super Bowl rings and stuff. Like, that definitely have been on the market for sale. And
But from who? Like staff members or like other people
players,
that are getting the rings?
From players
that
maybe
are selling their Super Bowl rings.
Yeah, I mean, that financially didn't make the best choices after they left the game.
Yeah.
And needed money. Like it's happened.
Okay. Okay. All right.
This
See
article
that.
says in 2013, the Augusta National winner Horton Smith's green jacket was auctioned off for $682,000. So this guy, so I'm not sure
Better be
why
a
he
nice
sold
jacket.
it. Yeah, I don't know. Like I almost expect to have it say for charity, but no, just straight up. That much money. It doesn't say anything about charity, so he wanted that $500,000 plus instead. So I can't blame him. I don't know.
All right. Well, congratulations to Hideki Matsuyama. Very exciting for the country of Japan and just the game of golf to see that accomplishment. So, and Breaky discovered a new appreciation for the Masters and was even able to dabble into his new great hobby, sports betting. That's good.
To my wife's admiration, yeah, she loves the fact that I'm putting money on these things. So
yeah, you're gonna hit one of these big one weekend, and
you just wait.
She's getting a nice vacation. I can feel it. All right, moving on. Let's check in on our poll. About 30 minutes in here, and Breaky, let me tell you, the votes are really flying in today. We're at 7, so
Okay.
that's pretty good. And overwhelmingly, Justin Fields seems to be the popular choice for the second best quarterback in the draft with 5 of the 7 votes. Poor Mac Jones, 0 votes so far. So Zach Wilson and Trey Lance each have 1, but that is a great transition to get us talking about the upcoming NFL draft which is April 29th and taking place in Ohio this year. I believe in Cleveland, right? Or Cincinnati? Which one?
No, Cleveland. Cleveland it should be, yeah.
Cleveland, right?
Yeah.
But so we've got about 2 weeks until the NFL draft, and we've talked a lot about trades the last few weeks, but we're starting to get closer to that time where teams are going to settle in. But like, what the heck is going on with Jimmy Garoppolo in San Francisco? Like, are they going to keep him? Or are they not going to keep him? What's going on? Because I feel like that is definitely going to be very interesting in the draft with the 49ers having that 3rd pick.
Yeah, there is a lot of potential this NFL draft to see some movement within the first round, let alone within the earlier part of the first round. And one of those teams, as you bring up, is certainly the San Francisco 49ers. And yeah, that's the question they have to ask themselves: do they just keep Jimmy Garoppolo, or do they draft one of these new quarterbacks that? A lot are suggesting this is one of the better quarterback classes we've had in a while as far as the depth of it in the first 5 or 6 or so. I mean, personally, I'm not obviously a super analyst on this stuff, but it's just kind of from the outside reflection. I still go back to they got to give Jimmy Garoppolo more of a chance, right? Like this, it really seems like these teams kind of get caught up in the moment so much with these new bright names coming in and, think of what they're going to be or what they can be and all the tickets they're going to sell, yada, yada. And yes, we occasionally have those examples come through that are a pretty big success, but we also have a much more larger example size of those that simply fall flat on their face after a couple of years, and they're never to be heard of again. So I'm leaning towards, I really hope the San Francisco 49ers stick with Jimmy Garoppolo and perhaps get some trade value out of this, because there are a lot of teams in this draft that are going to be looking for one of those 5-6 quarterbacks that do need it much more than the 49ers. Trade back, get much more value out of it, a first-round pick, another first-round pick in a future year, a third-round pick, etc., all this together to build more depth to your team. So to play kind of GM of the 49ers for this specific example, I think they should certainly stick with Jimmy Garoppolo and look to play the trade game.
It's interesting when you look at even our current poll today with everyone, feeling like Justin Fields is the second best quarterback in this draft. I'm looking at 3 different mock drafts, and none of these 3 people have Justin Fields going as one of the first 3 quarterbacks.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I will be curious to see where he falls,
Well,
where he
and
goes.
so the
Maybe he doesn't fall.
yeah, it's tough for me. So to again, as far as the poll went, I actually did vote Zach Wilson at a BYU. The more I've been hearing about him and seeing him and the analysis going on from several different parties, it does feel like he is a very high tier prospect, and there are a lot that have him as the second, just behind Trevor Lawrence. And he did have an impressive recent season, at least, especially with BYU. BYU actually, they almost pulled off the undefeated season, had that one loss in the end, but still very impressive season for them, and he was a big part for that. And it seems like he's a good body frame. He seems like his throwing arm is up there with the best of them, and he's going to have a bright future. So to Justin Fields, I think a lot of it is kind of unfortunate and similar to Trevor Lawrence in the positive way, where it's like Justin Fields, they remember the championship game, and he did have a pretty poor championship game. He was playing with injury, etc., but it didn't go too well. In the combine, I guess he's been doing okay, but we can't really say what teams are looking at there and what they're taking from it. But it feels like that his stock did drop off into the championship game, which is unfortunate. It doesn't seem like that should be the case. The fact that he was playing in it, but
I have to say though, in that semifinal game, like I couldn't have been more impressed.
Yeah.
Like I thought he played well. He was a fighter. Like I was excited to see that matchup because I'm thinking, wow, like I think we learned a lot about him in that semifinal game, and it's a shame that he couldn't have been healthier in that matchup against Trevor Lawrence. But I was impressed in the game before that very much.
I will say I can comfortably put him third best. So obviously Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson was my second if I had to choose, and then I would say Justin Fields, and perhaps even pretty close to Zach Wilson, frankly, because for me, like somebody like a Mac Jones out of Alabama, obviously yes, had a great season with Alabama, and he did surprise a lot of people, but it didn't seem like he had these flashy plays that you could truly see, like the Trevor Lawrence, like the Justin Fields, that could translate to the NFL and really carry a team. He just seems like, to me, he seems like the kind of quarterback that, maybe is going to be a starter in the NFL, perhaps a long-time reserve quarterback for a lot of these teams down the line. So I would certainly have him over a Mac Jones, just simply for that flash factor and that potential to really be able to carry a team if needed in a player like Justin Fields.
Yeah, I mean, in two of these different mocks, Justin Fields falls to number 9, and another one he falls to number 7, possibly, and both of those actually going to Denver. But you bring up Mac Jones, and I think that is so interesting because of Alabama being who they are. A lot of these other quarterbacks, I mean, one's coming out of BYU and North Dakota State,
Yeah.
and a handful of other schools. They don't have that same talent all around them. These quarterbacks, they're relied on more to make big plays and to be creative, and they take on a lot more of that weight. But when you go to a school, I mean, even in Ohio State, but specifically Alabama, where you have one of the best running backs in the country, you have plenty of wide receivers that are top talent, like you have a great line, like there's so much around you that you don't have to be as much of a star. You might be really good, but all the players around you are going to make you look pretty good too. So that's why I think I'm always curious to see how an Alabama quarterback translates into the NFL when like everybody's good.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just think that there's more at some of these smaller schools where there's not just like flooded with talent. Those quarterbacks, I think you learn a lot more about them early on, and why maybe once they get to an NFL team and they have that talent around them, and that they're more polished, like that trajectory of how good they can be is always something that I think is a cool evolution to watch.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting kind of, you can kind of see it from both perspectives of, like, I certainly see what you're saying, where, yeah, you don't have as much talent around you at these smaller schools, so you need to do more yourself, and that could showcase more of what your potential is. But at the same time, it's not his fault that he's playing with really good athletes around him. He's working with what he's got, and he did execute, right? So I could see, and you could also argue, I think they like to say that, oh, he's more NFL ready. You know, maybe he's not as much work needed because he's in a more NFL ready system, playing with NFL elite athletes. You know, so there's that argument too. But yeah, to kind of go on what you're saying too with what's his name, Trey Lance? Yeah, Trey Lance out of North Dakota State. That's another interesting story because, yeah, obviously Division I AA. And I was double checking this, but that is also where Carson Wentz was drafted out of, and there was obviously a lot of controversy there when he was drafted and picked up out of North Dakota State, and people were wondering, you know, he's not playing against the elite players. Is this really the best pick? Frankly, I mean, I think the argument is still out there because, yes, he's had some success, but as of late, it has dropped quite a bit, and now he's not even playing for the team that drafted him. So I think we're still yet to be determined on that. So Trey Lance almost has that kind of shadow over him, and he may be better than a Carson Wentz, and perhaps could even end up being the best quarterback in this draft in the long run. But I think that may be hurting his stock a little bit too.
But going off of your point, you could say, well, drafting Josh Allen out of Wyoming worked out pretty well, at least currently, and up to this point. And when you look at the current NFL quarterbacks and where they went to college, I'm talking about Tua and Jalen Hurts. No, not Jalen Hurts. Yeah, Jalen Hurts originally.
He was Alabama originally, yeah.
Right. Who else from Alabama at the quarterback position is in the NFL?
You know, I was looking that up because I had the same thought too. I'm like thinking with Alabama quarterbacks, and they've had the recent one before that was actually AJ McCarron, and that was in 2014. You're like, who?
That was brief.
Yeah. Greg McElroy, Brody Croyle. Yeah, these are names I don't even recognize. This is getting into early 2000s at this point. So yeah, Alabama, when it comes to quarterback success in the NFL, translating in the last 20 to 30 years, hasn't necessarily had that. But, you know, again, that's always a dangerous thing to, in my opinion at least, to just look at and be like, well, players from this school, you know, haven't had success before, so that means he's going to be a failure. I mean, that's not true, obviously. So, but there is something to be said about a coincidence and about the system is still similar, and you'd have to certainly factor that in. So take that how you will, I suppose.
Yeah, I just think that there's a decent amount of quarterbacks right now in the NFL where I think that is, you know, a position where you can prove a lot and maybe show, like, you know, potential no matter what school you're at in a lot of ways. And you look at, you know, some of the top quarterbacks right now are starting quarterbacks rather in the NFL. I mean, like Derek Carr, Fresno State, Matt Ryan went to Boston College. You know, there's just some. NC State is really like a sneaky school where there's quarterbacks out of. Well, Phillip Rivers retired.
I was going to say Phillip Rivers was.
Yeah, but Russell Wilson started out at NC State and then ended up at Wisconsin.
Yeah, that doesn't really count.
Oh, come on, give it to him.
He was drafted because of what he did at Wisconsin, not because of NC State. But yes, he did go there initially.
They get a little credit. But yeah, like Drew Brees retired, but Purdue. Yeah, I don't know. There's just a wide variety of. I guess it's like you have these colleges that are powerhouses and that are in the college football playoff year after year after year. But I think in this case, it doesn't always translate to like dominating at, you know, like every Alabama quarterback is going to go into the NFL and be the absolute best player. Even though them as a team is incredibly dominant year in and year out.
Mm-hmm. So there was a stat that I heard recently that was kind of another interesting point to keep in mind, as far as quarterbacks being drafted at number 1. And
I'm excited to hear this.
Well, let's see. I went to please note. Okay, so it's a different stat that I'm thinking of then, because you know what it was? It was quarterbacks that's why I was confused by this. So it was quarterbacks that were drafted number 1 overall that then went on to win a Super Bowl with that same team. So, like, so technically Eli Manning was one of those quarterbacks that eventually won, of course, a couple Super Bowls, but he wasn't drafted by the Giants. He was drafted by the Chargers. And then that whole trade happened as a result of him being a crybaby. Won't get too much into that. So the only two actual quarterbacks are Troy Aikman and Peyton Manning that were drafted by that team and then went on to win a Super Bowl. So it hasn't happened much. And there's, as far as how many number one overall, that's actually another stat to then reference to this. First pick QBs ever. I'm trying to see if I can get like more of a precise number on how many have been drafted number one. I want to say it looks like 21. Yeah, 21 or 22, depending on, maybe that's an older article. But so it's been like around 21, 22 that have been drafted number one overall. Only two of them won a Super Bowl with that team. We're talking about the overall number one pick in the NFL draft. The ultimate goal is to win a Super Bowl. Obviously, there's a lot of other factors that come into play, but it goes to that, you know, the odds are against Jacksonville Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence, right? So is he truly that once-in-a-generation player, the Troy Aikman, the Peyton Manning, that is going to be able to lead them to a Super Bowl? I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. And you think, I don't know, to think you have the number one pick in the NFL draft and that you're getting the best player in the category that your team needs to fill the most, it's supposed to be a major game changer. I mean, that's incredible to have. I mean, well, it's incredible to have a number one pick. Maybe not so incredible how you got there. but yeah, you think that player that you have that opportunity to take would be game changing enough to at least help build around, guide your team to the Super Bowl, that type of thing. And then if they end up not even being there, if and when that time comes, is odd.
Unfortunate. There are other positions. I don't know if we want to talk too much about.
No, there's not.
The quarterback isn't the only position that exists here for this draft, surprisingly enough. So, you know, maybe highlighting a couple other things, I suppose. But I'll say, you know, for me, a big focus is the Detroit Lions. And they're drafting number 9 now. Although I wouldn't mind seeing them draft if somehow like Justin Fields or Zach Wilson is still remaining, if one of those two quarterbacks, I would love to see the Lions pick up one of those two quarterbacks. But I don't expect them to be there.
You really don't have, you're not having faith in your team's big trade, huh?
I'm thinking about the future. I mean, again, Jared Goff, he is a solid QB.
He's young.
I know. See, here I am being a hypocrite again. I should give him a chance, but I don't know.
But you won't.
But I probably won't. But the point is that they're probably not going to be there anyway, so, you know, whatever. It's not going to be the case. There is a lot of suggestion. A lot of the predictions are going with a wide receiver, either Jamar Chase out of LSU or Jalen Waddle out of Alabama. I would love to see that. We need to replace Marvin Jones Jr., and we lost another one as well in this offseason, so we do not really have a lot of options for Jared Goff right now for the Lions. But I would also like to see a cornerback as well. So maybe not the most attractive position to pick up in the first round, but personally, our secondary has been horrible this last couple of years, ever since Darius Slay left, actually, especially on top of that. So there's certainly a lot of things that they need to fill in overall, but I would be happy with a wide receiver or a cornerback for the Lions.
I just thought of what if I had a second chance at, you know, or another poll question for this week. Maybe we do it for next week. But fun question would have been, will a running back, aka Najee Harris, go in the first round?
Where is he? Let's see, like an overall list and everything.
He's like a borderline. Like he's on the bubble.
Yeah, he's a 21 overall on the ESPN list, but again, obviously it comes down to position needs and everything for teams. Like I'm trying to like look through some of the later teams and seeing if any stand out as one that could really use a good running back. I mean, the Jets could always use, they could use everything, so he stands out. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Running backs are usually pretty tough to find earlier on in the first round, let alone, I mean, you'd at least expect one or two
Unless
in the
you're
first round. But yeah, there's been a couple, Ezekiel Elliott, Saquon Barkley, like there's been some that have proven. I think Derrick Henry was up there as he should have been too. So yeah, if you're really next level, then sure. But is Najee Harris that level? I want to say I remember being impressed watching him actually in the games I watched this season.
Pretty good.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe that's an interesting question though. I would probably lean towards no, just because
I'm gonna say yes. I think someone goes for it. I think late, but I think somebody goes for it. I think it's a toss-up. But you're saying no, so I'll say yes.
There you go. Well, it's got to be the opposite. All right, that's fine.
Got to be.
Makes for good content there, sure.
Cool. Yeah, it's something. I actually think. I mean, you can bet on just about anything. Do you think you can bet on that?
I haven't looked into betting for the NFL draft, but I'm sure you can. Yeah,
it's got to be right.
Well, once it gets closer, then I'm sure it'll start popping up. I use FanDuel myself, so I'm sure something will be on there once we get a little bit closer. But I'll probably knowing me and what I've been doing recently, maybe I'll put a little bit. We'll see.
Knowing you and the current trend, my guess would be you might find something that sparks your interest to take a chance with.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, NFL draft April 29th, a couple weeks out, but certainly fun to. I feel like once you get through the NFL draft and camp starts, it's like we have summer and everyone's busy doing stuff, and then we're back and it goes very quick. But moving on, let's talk a little bit Ultimate Rivals before we go today. We like to highlight a player each week that you can play in Ultimate Rivals, the rink. And with the MLB season now in full swing, let's talk Dodgers and third baseman Justin Turner coming off of that World Series championship last year. And he's actually one of 3 Dodgers that you can play in Ultimate Rivals, the rink, and will be coming to Ultimate Rivals, the court. But Breaky, what sticks out to you about Justin Turner taking a baseball player and playing ice hockey with him?
Well, let's get a closer look here. So Justin Turner, as you mentioned, coming off a pretty hot season recently with those Dodgers and winning the whole thing. When it comes to it translating on the rink, it's an interesting player because the first thing to keep in mind, he is naturally a baseball player, and so he is provided with the baseball deke, which in my opinion is the best deke in the game. It sends you forward, you slide on the ice and you go forward. It's a great for a center position. And it just so happens that he's also, fairly fast, but also really good handling. So actually as a center, Justin Turner, I feel like is pretty good potential. Now, you do look at some of the other stats, specifically the offense. His shooting is a little bit further down there, but he can be a great passer. So setting up for the one-timer perhaps after you get the puck off the bat and then going for the setup is something to keep in mind. But even with the lower end shooting, you could it doesn't mean you can't score goals at all. You can certainly still score. Just have to be a little bit more efficient with it. So, yeah, I would say if you're looking to use Justin Turner, one that will be a great center position specifically. His goalie side has really good maneuverability. Can definitely be thrown in there. Maybe not as ideal as some others, but yeah, the center is what I go back to with him.
Well, there you have it. Justin Turney.
My boy, Justin Turney.
Justin Turney. Justin Turner, check him out in Ultimate Rivals, the rink. And that's about all we have today. Breaky, any final thoughts?
WrestleMania was fun. Watched a little bit of that, and it was honestly, I want to say it's the first time I've ever watched WrestleMania as well. So I watched the Masters, WrestleMania. I was doing it all. New things this weekend, and it was entertaining. It was entertaining. But
really just putting yourself out there this year to get into some other sports, right? Well, it's exciting, I think, because coming off of the last few weeks, of course, and Ultimate Rivals announcing its partnership with WWE, as well as starting to reveal some of the superstars that are going to be and make their debut rather in Ultimate Rivals the Court. It's sort of, you're like, this WrestleMania stuff's kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's totally different and unlike anything else that I think we've watched. But man, there is a serious following.
Yeah, there's some diehard fans for that scene, which is awesome. You know, you definitely got to appreciate people that are that invested into something like that, and there's a reason why the business is very, very successful and has been for a long time. But you know, I genuinely was entertained for the bits that I was tuning into, and excited to maybe watch a little bit more now, especially with that partnership coming out as mentioned.
There we go. Well, good stuff. As always, thanks to those of you that tuned in with us today, and hope you have a great rest of your week. We'll see you back here next Wednesday, same time, same place for Ultimate Rival Sports Talk.